Hi, Elizabeth. So, really exciting that I'm going to be speaking with you today. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Anne. Thanks for this opportunity to have this chat with you.
Oh, you're welcome. Like, I find what's happened to you so interesting, and for the experience that you've gone through, and you're now an author, selling your books around the country and internationally as well. I just think it's amazing how your journey has really taken you onto a different path from what you was doing. So, um, tell us about your book. What's it called, and what's it about?
Well, I'll do the one there and I hope everyone can see it. It's called Silent No More and it's about healing from workplace bullying. It was a book I wrote to help me from healing from workplace bullying. I had a number of incidences that were happening to me and I often couldn't work out why. And this was my investigation of what I needed to learn because I had seek professional help before, but it just wasn't enough for me to understand what was going on. And like for me, part of the thing is I didn't have the self-worth. I was giving and giving. I wasn't even allowing myself to receive. I had very little boundaries around what people did to me because I'd sort of grown up thinking people being abusive to me was normal.
Yes.
Yeah, which I find very sad to say that, but that's how it all came through my childhood and I kept those patterns going in my life. And the other thing I didn't realise, I was actually attracting narcissistic people with narcissistic behaviour. And that was part of the problem because they knew how to manipulate you. They knew how to get you to do what they wanted. They put fear and intimidation into you. So, knowing that that's what you were dealing with was really important for me and knowing what the bullies wanted from me. Once I learned what they wanted from me, it just made it so much easier to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. And what you said about, not dealing with the problem from childhood and you just keep repeating in adulthood as well. Yeah, that's the key point, really, that if we don't clear our own stuff, it just keeps coming back around again and again. So how would you describe like workplace bullying? What was your average day like when you would go into work?
Well, near the end, it was much harder to go in every day because you just knew you were unhappy. For me, a lot of it was about that I wasn't allowed to speak. My thoughts and feelings were invalidated. So if I brought up how I was feeling, it's like it just didn't matter. As long as I was on task, that was all that mattered to that person. So there was no conversation there was no working together. There was no cooperation. You were like a cog in a wheel and that you didn't matter. And that made me really quite sick. And twice when I was upset, my upset was totally ignored and it didn't matter. So just being invalidated, and part of the other issues was I was being gaslighted over time. And I lost my confidence. I had a lot more doubt against my abilities. And it wasn't until I spoke to a counsellor and she goes, perhaps you're being gaslighted. Yeah. And that's part of the trivialization and the minimization of what you say is what gaslighters do. And it was just like you couldn't have a conversation because it was all one way to you.
Yeah. And like since writing your book and doing the investigations that you've done, how big is workplace bullying in our society?
It's pretty big. I know the Australian figures from headspace.org, I think, are $6 to $36 billion a year.
Wow.
It's huge. And there are laws saying psychological safety, you can come to work as you are, but they're a little bit meaningless unless there's a company that's actually prepared to actually listen. Quite often what I find is that they look at an isolated incident and it's never isolated. It's always multiple incidents and there is always a trail with a person that does bullying behaviour. And they don't look at it. They look at one or two things and go, yeah, you're too sensitive. You're this. Oh, you got upset about something. You misunderstood something. And it's not the whole story. And it's like a way they want to brush everything under the under the mat and make it easy and go away. And the other thing I found is quite often if you have a problem and you leave the workplace thinks, oh, there's no more problems now. Someone's left. Therefore, we've identified that person was the problem. But in fact, your problem still exists. And you'll see another problem with them when they feel like someone else's talent is threatening them, because it comes from someone being threatened. They feel they're being threatened by someone's talent and who they are.
Yeah. And did you find that all of the issues were always put back onto you? It was your problem, it was your fault, that type of thing?
Yeah. I remember one meeting I went to and everything was reframed as that other person being right and I was wrong, and kept trying to paint me, just even having my words trivialized and minimized. It's like it didn't matter.
Yeah.
The fact that someone else had got reprimanded and that person took it back out on me, and when I said it to them, they didn't care. It's everything, oh, you have to deal with that other person. And the other thing I found, like sometimes when we've got a problem at work, you just want to talk about it and let it out and find a solution, rather than, oh, it has to be formal or you deal with them. There's got to be something in between that actually helps a person deal with something.
Yeah.
You can't just not listen and go, well, you've got to work it out for yourself, or you've got to go talk to them. You've got to have a framework to talk to other people. You can't just simply go and tell them. So you need to be providing a better framework for people, but you need to actually also look at that other person's behaviour, because that other person's causing problems for other people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would imagine that causes so much frustration and like emotional trauma when that's going on, because you must feel like you're not being believed in the situations. How did it actually affect your health?
Well, I've had fatigue before. I got really sick. I got more infections, sinus infections, viruses, and my health went really down, ways of energy and mentally just trying to deal with it, trying to go to work and have a happy smile on your face so people didn't know that you were affected.
Yeah.
A lot of people, even if they see bullying, they don't want to be part of standing up, because with the bullying behaviour, so much fear and intimidation is put into people. And that's what I found really hard. A lot of fear and intimidation put in you. And when you speak up, you're just squashed and trivialised. So you can't even resolve the issue often within a company. You've got to get out and deal with your own crap, and also get to the point where it's okay to let go and send them love at the end. And that takes a while to get to.
Yes, yeah, definitely, because you was in quite a corporate, high-profile job, wasn't you, when all this was going on? And so, for you to walk away, it's had lots of implications. And but one of the best things that's come out of it is that you've wrote your book, Silent No More. How did that come about?
I think it was me wanting to express, because the expression of myself was denied at work. My thoughts and feelings was denied. So I needed to end up then writing in the book, and there's a lot got edited out of it. Because there was a lot written in anger, but I also wanted to put it all together for people, because I'd gone and seen somebody and it was about dealing with me, but nothing about what type of person I was dealing with. And you've got to, even though you can't control or change the other person, you've got to know who you're dealing with. And these people want control. They also want you to view yourself as less. They want you to view yourself as less. So they do their best to make yourself view yourself as less. And if you don't address that of what they want from you and know what their behavior is, it's very hard. It's got to be, I felt like it was more a complete solution, which what I was looking for. So I wrote it. You know what they say, if you can't find it, write it for yourself.
That's right, yes. And so, we're hearing on the media that there's bullying at schools and all throughout society, really. Would your book be able to help, teenagers or young adults who are going through similar experiences?
Yeah, I believe so, because it comes back to looking at what the other person's behaviour and where they're coming from. And quite honestly, if you look at their behavior is something they're not resolved in their childhood as well, which is the really saddest thing, is hurt people hurt people. So that's the other thing, to work out, maybe they've got something going wrong and it's their stuff, not your stuff. And I think we need to build people up, not be sensitive. Well, yes, it's okay to be sensitive, but to be able to put the boundaries around and go, oh, hang on, that's their crap. You're not to take on what they think about you. You've got to have you and build up your own self-worth. And we need to be building up children's self-worth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's such a key point, because if we understand how we work as people, then we can make sure that we're not taking on other people's emotions or their trauma that then affects us. So yeah, really important. What's one of the first signs of bullying, do you think? What can people be aware of? What can other colleagues or friends be on the lookout for if they see a particular behaviour start to happen?
Well, for one of my things is listen to your intuition, and I call them red flags. And quite often when you meet somebody the first time, you go, this happened in a couple of cases of me, oh, I think there's going to be a problem. And there was, but we allow our logic mind, go, it'll be okay. I'll work with them. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it's not. And we've got to really listen to that gut, because there is a flag there with it. And the other thing is, like, over time, if you're feeling less than what you did, you don't have the confidence, or you constantly get the message from them that you're not good enough, or you're not behaving the way they want you. And it is okay to, I found in one case where a person didn't realize the way they were talking to me, and the people go, I don't like the way they talk to you. In the end, I put my hand up, and do you know what? They realized, oh, hang on. So most normal people, you can sort of do that. But if they do go on and have those narcissistic behavior and tendencies, you can't get reason out of it. You'll never get meet in the middle. They're the ones you've got to walk away, because you just can't. The winning is you maintaining yourself. But
yes,
you can't deal with them. You can't explain things. They're not interested in listening. And that's one I found, is they weren't interested in listening what I could say. They were too busy telling me what I needed to be. So they're the people you've got to walk away from, because you're not going to get it resolved, and you've got to accept it won't be resolved.
Yeah. Yeah, because do you feel that they really don't like themselves very much, and so they project behaviour outside themselves, whether it's anger, whether it's being narcissistic, as you said, or whether it's just being, arrogant, that type of thing? Is that what you would see in a bullying situation?
Yeah, and I also think, like I've seen in a couple of people that I know that's happened to me, that I believe there's circumstances in their life where they lost control as a child. And quite a part of the bullying is you've got to feel in control. And if something tips you out of control, then you've got to get control back. And if that means hurting someone, harming someone, so you feel safe and you've got control back, that's what they'll do. And it's so sad, because they are so hurting, but they've got no awareness about what they're doing. It's like a mechanism, and they're so used to being able to tell people things that someone will go, oh, they're more logical than the emotional one. We'll take the logical person's approach rather than the emotional one. So they're very good at what they do and convincing people, other people about you. So it's a really hard thing.
Yeah. And, it'd be so wonderful if businesses started to use all of this billions of dollars that they're spending to actually see that the person who is doing the bullying actually needs some support themselves. It's not just about, the victim, or trying to put the blame onto someone else and keep, as you say, sweep it under the carpet. There's someone there who's, calling out for help, showing behaviour that's not acceptable, and they're being allowed to get away with it, really.
Yeah, and I think it is about investigating more. And quite often it is one person's word against the other, or how someone felt and how someone framed it. But there's obviously an issue between two people.
Yes.
And to go, there's no claim of bully, bang, nothing to see here, move on. But you still got a problem, and they're not even addressing the problem. And part of the problem is I love what Oprah says, is person wants to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to know what they said meant to the other person. And that just doesn't happen in that situation. It's just like, no, nothing to look at here. Let's all move on. And when you've been bullied, your brain chemistry can change. You see yourself as less desirable. It's just not that easy to move on. And
no, that's right. Yeah, because the stress and anxiety that would be building in the body would stop you from sleeping properly. It would either reduce your appetite or make you want to eat more. You know, it has so many biological side effects.
Yeah, and I think one of the worst things is not being validated, your experience not being validated. That is just one of the worst things I think can happen to you, is you're just wiped off, you've made it up, you're sensitive, you're this, it was you, you know, and it's like just being wiped off as a person. It's like that old fear that we have, you know, that we've got the primitive fear still of being rejected from the tribe. And when you're caveman days, when you're rejected from the tribe, you died.
Yes.
So
yeah.
This is like a huge rejection of who you are as a person. And it can be very devastating to the soul, because it's really coming at your identity. Someone is attacking who you are, and it's really hard.
Yeah. What would you recommend that someone who feels like they're being bullied in the workplace actually does? What would their first step be?
I think one of the things is probably find a good counsellor or someone to speak to. Now, make sure it's someone that actually listens and validates you and you feel comfortable with them. That's so important. It's got to be the right fit for you that you feel you can talk about. So when you find the right fit, you've got to look at your issues as well. You've got to look what you're attracting. You've got to look at your boundaries, because you can't fix them. You've got to change the way you do. It will depend on HR, your human resources department. Some companies now have a big whistleblower line where you can ring up about behaviour. So that will depend on the size of the company. It will depend how the company goes. And you usually have a gut feel of how problems are solved in the company. So if they're not really being solved, then you have to work out your options. But if you've got a good company that you know will solve, you've got someone that can listen to you, we'll take that route. So it's really assessing what the situation is and what's going to work for you. So if management's very toxic behaviour, it's unlikely to be solved. But if you have really good management that don't tolerate it, you're likely to get it solved. So it all really depends on what company you work for, where the bullying is coming from, how high up. So it's a lot of assessment and looking at yourself and going, I'm worth more than this. I'm not going to stay where I'm not being appreciated or have my worth seen. It's just so not worth it.
Yeah. So really the first step is actually telling someone what's going on for you and how you're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many people where this is going on, and it usually starts off as being like quite simple, just a little thing here and there that's being said, and then it builds and builds, and it can really make people have such a miserable life. Like it ruins lives.
Yeah, it really does. And I know of people that haven't recovered from this. You know, they've gone down the workers' comp and been permanently retired from work. And because we're not really taught of what the bully wants from us, that we're not getting, it's their jealousy or they want to control things. When we understand what they're looking for, then it makes it easier. But nothing is ever identified with that. It's all, we've got to fix ourselves, but we've got to know what we're dealing with.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. So what's next for you? Like what's your future hold for you now?
Well, I really discovered I really like writing.
Yeah.
So I've got another couple of books in the pipeline because I just want to help people and have issues that aren't normally talked about out there in a book form, and to give help. And the whole thing is, me being vulnerable means about my story, it can help other people, because that's why I call my book Silent No More, because bullying is so silent. It goes that you leave a company, you don't tell them why you're leaving, you start another company, you don't tell them why, and the bully remains, they get promoted, and it just remains. I've been in companies where people before me left, people after me left. So, there's always a trail of it because of the silence. And I just like to normalize it's okay to talk about it. And why are we blaming the victim and not hold the perpetrator to account for their behaviour?
Yeah, because when people do leave and they go and get another job, they're carrying all of the emotion from the previous job, and then it happens again in the next company, and so on, and so it just keeps repeating itself. So if they can get help when it first starts happening, it's not going to ruin the rest of their life, really.
Yeah, and I think the thing is not to stay in those situations where you see a massive red flag, that you can't have someone that you cannot have conversations with where you're heard. It's unlikely that you'll be heard going forward. You can give a few goes, give it a go, but if it's not, and they're not interested in what you've got to say, you're not going to solve it. So the earlier you leave, when you identify that, the less damage. It's when we stay in those situations that causes more damage.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Elizabeth. And where can the viewers get a copy of your book, Silent No More?
It's on Amazon at the moment, in whichever country you're in. Amazon sell it. And I'm doing a bit of poetry on Instagram every day, and my handle is LIZZG4.
Fantastic. Lovely. Because you're really into poetry as well, aren't you?
Yes, they're more self-development poems, I think, because I just write what I feel on the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And, it just takes one person to read that poem and give them a different perspective on whatever's going on for them.
Yeah, and it's very much on the heart. There's nothing other than it's what I feel. And I have to learn now, I have to frame a few of the poems, because sometimes when they're a little bit down, I get calls, are you okay? Which is so sweet. It's just lovely. So I usually frame, I felt this a couple of days ago. So, but just to really be there from what you feel. And I think the more we can be ourselves and be vulnerable, it helps other people be vulnerable.
It does. And, by people reaching out to you and saying, are you okay? Like, sometimes we can have such busy lives that we can forget to ask people if they're okay. And, just that phone call or just that message checking in with them can make such a huge difference, because if they've got the courage, they'll actually turn around and say, well, actually, no, I'm not okay today. I really just need someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's been lovely getting those lovely messages and to know people care. That's just been beautiful.
Yes, fantastic. Well, as I said, an absolute pleasure to speak with you. Good luck with all of your new books. And I really know that it's going to make a difference to other people who are in the workplace who are being bullied, and give them some hope and some, key skills that they can start to implement that can really change their situation.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know it can be changed. You're not stuck in it, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Well, as Elizabeth said, her book's available on Amazon, and she's on Instagram, and we'll put a link into the Instagram feed as well, so that you can go and read her beautiful poems.
Thanks, Anne. Much appreciate the chat.
Thank you. All right.